Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a former Open Ultra League meta staple that is looking to try and make a return to relevance, and that is Gyarados. Now, Gyarados in the early seasons of Go Battle League was top meta in the Open Ultra League, but with the ever-increasing addition of XL Pokemon and increasing stat products, Gyarados has fallen a little bit by the wayside. However, with the buff to Aqua Tail now doing extra damage, the question can be posed, at long last, is Gyarados finally back? And that's the question that I aim to answer today. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out the newly buffed Gyarados in the Ultra League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a very nice lead, Greedent into Tapu Fini. Now this matchup is neutral on paper, but considering I have a Giratina and a Gyarados in the back, I'm extremely happy to catch that Tapu Fini on the lead. I land the Body Slam, continue to farm up, opponent attempts to go for a Body Slam catch onto Registeel, but I'm able to hold on to my energy and fire off the Crunch. I'm fishing for the potential debuff. I'm going to farm up till they make it to the Focus Blast and switch into the Giratina. Honestly, I just wanted to bank double Crunch, but it ends up working better than I could have hoped as I end up catching a Focus Blast. The opponent choosing not to overfarm, and it cost them in a massive way. They're now going to start firing off Zap Cannons into the Giratina. Giratina will start firing off these Shadow Sneaks in return. Now, Shadow Sneak, not a powerful move by any means. I'm going to continue to farm up and go for another Shadow Sneak. This is basically just a war of attrition at this point. The Registeel, I'm just trying to get rid of it by whatever means necessary. They take advantage of the desync timers, send in the Tapu Fini, and I'm forced to shield a Moonblast. But I saved so much energy on the Greedent, and this Tapu Fini is about to be hit with a absolute deluge of Body Slams. Body Slam number 1 connects. Greedent already at 2 more Body Slams. This Body Slam is going to get the Tapu Fini low, but the Tapu Fini 1 HP remaining, able to make one final charge attack, even if it is only just the Surf. They do still have the Reggie available, but the Reggie has taken some damage. They're actually going to send in their final Pokemon, which is Talonflame, and considering I have a Gyarados, I am pretty happy to see a Talonflame here. Talonflame attempting to go for an Incinerate farm down, but this Greedent just able to spam out charge move after charge move. I'm not going to get to 2 more, so I'm just going to go for the Crunch and fish for a potential debuff. The Crunch is going to connect. I can now send in the Gyarados. Gyarados going to be able to absorb a Fly, no problem. Opponent actually running Brave Bird. That does some solid damage. In comes the Registeel, and the opponent goes for the combo play. I do still have a shield remaining. I'm going to use it here. I'm going to look to overfarm with the Gyarados, fire off the Aqua Tail. This will pick up the knockout unless they burn the final shield, and they are going to let that through. In comes the Talonflame. I switch out into the Giratina, and now I should have a very straightforward win condition. You cannot hold a Brave Bird and a Flame Charge at the same time. They need a Brave Bird to KO the Giratina, so they're just in an unwinnable position, where if they debuff themselves, they get farmed down with the Gyarados, so they just farm up a bunch, and they end up losing the game. Moving into the next match, leading Greedent into the Shadow Skuntank. Shadow Skuntank is a matchup where despite Greedent hitting for super effective damage with the Mudshot, I believe that the Skuntank does actually win the zeros due to the fact that 2 Body Slams plus the Mudshots are not enough to knock out. I'm farming up with the Greedent, able to make it to the back-to-back Body Slams, but my opponent now has the energy for the second Crunch. So I can go for the Body Slam. I lose charge attack priority, but I'm actually going to use this to my advantage, because Poison Jab does very little damage to Giratina, so I'm going to get a very nice farm on the Giratina, and let's see what my opponent wants to send in. They're thinking about it. They are waiting the clock, and they send in a Shadow Feraligatr. Shadow Feraligatr can do very well into Giratina, but down this much energy, Giratina can fight back in a massive way. Opponent looks like they're actually running Crunch on the Shadow Feraligatr, which is a pretty big surprise to me. The Crunch is going to be shielded as I return fire with the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is going to start to get them low. They no shield. It's a simultaneous switch. Gyarados into Annihilate. This is a very good spot to be in, as I have 2 counter resists, and my opponent has the Annihilate that has nowhere to run. Annihilate commits the shield. I'm still pretty healthy. I should live a Shadow Ball, so I am just going to no-shield here. I no-shield the Night Slash. Opponent gets the boost with the Annihilate. You've got to be kidding me. Oh, no. The Aqua Tail will be shielded, and now since they're boosted, they can just counter me into a range where a Night Slash will KO. I would have been very comfortable. Oh, and they get another boost! You've got to be kidding me! They're now 4 stages boosted. I have to be really careful here with this overfarm. I'm going to farm up and then go for the Dragon Claw just before they make the Night Slash. The quad boosted Annihilate gets KO'd. All that's left is the Feraligatr. Feraligatr unable to make it to the crunch. So despite the insanely boosted Annihilate, we do take that win. Moving to the next match, leading Greedent into Galvantula. Honestly, not terrible to see it here, because that way it's not on the Gyarados. I farm up quite a lot of energy. Opponent sends in their own Greedent, and in my view, this is a pretty big misplay by them, as they have just guaranteed to give me switch advantage in this moment, because, I mean, they banked some energy on Galvantula, but I can just stay in here. I have a big energy head start. I can win alignment, and then that Galvantula is going to get stuck going up against my Giratina. So I'm very happy to be in this position. I guess they just didn't want to take hits on the Galvantula, but Galvantula is a Pokemon that is entirely feast or famine. If it gets stuck against something like Giratina, there's nothing it can do. It loses on the spot. So giving up switch advantage like that is definitely a bit of a surprise to me, as the opponent is potentially setting themselves up for a headache in the endgame. They're going to be firing off the Body Slam. Body Slam, not going to be an issue. My Greedent still able to withstand that damage, and it looks like my Greedent is able to win charge attack priority, which is very nice, as Body Slam is going to pick up the KO. They send in Galvantula. Opponent, once again, switching out, and they have a Confusion Cresselia in the back. Cresselia, oh, they actually do get the defense drop, and now I can send in the Gyarados. Cresselia, I honestly don't see a massive need for Confusion in the Open Ultra League, as typically you are just going to want to try and go for the pure energy generation that is Psycho Cut. I'm going to let this go. It is going to be the Moonblast. Moonblast not going to be enough to knock out. Gyarados makes it to another crunch, putting pressure on the final shield of the opponent. They're going to double shield. I can now send in the Giratina, and as long as I do shield the move from Cresselia, there is no way that I lose this game. They have a ton of energy on the Galvantula, but it doesn't matter how many times they debuff me. Galvantula is not going to be able to flip Giratina, especially when I can land this Dragon Claw when it's only one stage debuffed. So this Dragon Claw is going to connect, and Galvantula, even with all those XL candies at level 50, is just so incredibly squishy. I do have the XL candies to build a level 50 Galvantula, but honestly I haven't made the investment before. Honestly, in my view, there are other electric types that are just better, like the Shadow Ampharos, the Heliolisk, as we just make an absolute back-breaking catch onto the Gyarados. Opponent doesn't want to play anymore, and they resign the match. Moving into the next match, leading Greedent into Tentacruel. Again, another matchup where despite the fact that Mudshot does hit for super effective damage, this is not an amazing spot to be in for the Greedent. So I will look to get some damage onto the Tentacruel and eventually look to catch a Scald onto the Giratina. And with the Giratina save switch, hopefully try to lure out some kind of a Steel or potentially an Ice type that the Gyarados doesn't want to see. So I will farm up with the Greedent here, quite a lot of energy, and get the catch onto the Giratina. That catch is big. They're, of course, not going to have a lot of energy now, so they are going to look to switch out. Oh, that is not what I was trying to bait out at all. In comes a Mandibuzz. The Mandibuzz throwing the Dark Pulse as soon as they get it, giving me an entire Shadow Claw for free. I'm looking to farm up, fire off the Dragon Claw, but without Ancient Power, Giratina cannot fight back particularly well versus the Mandibuzz. I did consider Ancient Power, but I felt like that would make the team just triple weak to Registeel, which I really didn't want, so instead I opted for the more flexible Shadow Sneak, but in this instance, Shadow Sneak definitely not going to help out. I'm going to send in the Gyarados. Gyarados farming up energy. Opponent is going to fire off a move. I can survive this on the Gyarados as I look to continue to get this closer and closer to Aqua Tail range. Oh, they're actually going to switch out. They send in Tentacruel. Tentacruel, Dragon Breath plus the Aqua Tail should be enough to knock out here, so we'll go for the Aqua Tail. Opponent commits the shield. I fire off another Aqua Tail. What is going on that they're shielding here? Now they're double shielding. They are clearly very weak to the Gyarados if this is how they're playing it out. So I will shield up the Scald, look to get a little bit of energy, and get the farm down. I am in a bit of an awkward spot where I'm very low on health. I'll have to see what my opponent decides to send in. They send in the Mandibuzz. I'm farming up energy here with the Gyarados, committing the shield. I will look to switch out of here eventually. I send in the Greedent, and Greedent is going to go for the combo play with the Body Slam. Body Slam, not going to be enough to knock out. In the back, oh, I now see why they didn't switch. It's a Swampert. Swampert is going to be met with the Crunch. At this point, I'm just fishing for a potential debuff. Swampert fires off the Hydro, unwilling to take any more damage. Hydro will pick up the KO. Back in comes the Gyarados. I'm farming up to the back-to-back Aqua Tails. They now have the Hydro. This is going to be a test of the new Aqua Tail damage. Is it going to be enough to two-shot? This is a CMP tie, so if this doesn't KO, I lose. It does KO. In comes the Mandibuzz. It's a simultaneous KO. You know what? For how rough that looked in the mid-game, I will take a tie. We've got amazing spice from the opponent in the next match. Greedent versus Tapu Koko. They're going to bank one Volt Switch of energy and save switch into a Dragon Breath Giratina. I don't mind staying in here with the Greedent because I would love to be able to set up a potential farm down for my Shadow Claw Giratina. Even the Shadow Sneak, it's not the greatest move ever, will apply a lot of damage onto the Tapu Koko since Tapu Koko is not known for its bulk. The Crunch is going to connect. I'm going to send in my own Giratina. I have zero problem with just letting this go and farming down, as a Dragon Claw is not excessively threatening at this health range, so I will get a very nice farm down. The Tapu Koko, of course, does have the typing advantage in this matchup, but its fast attack Volt Switch is going to be resisted. The Shadow Sneak will connect. I continue to farm. I make it to Shadow Sneak number 2, and this will be getting this Tapu Koko deep into the red. The Shadow Sneak is going to connect. They bank a move on the Tapu Koko, go for the snipe with the Shadow Dragonite, but Giratina barely able to hang on, make the Dragon Claw, and force the shield. I was looking to switch, but the Dragon Breath does pick up the KO. In comes the Gyarados. Gyarados, not too threatened here by the Shadow Dragon Claw. Able to absorb that damage. Gyarados will be able to fire off the Aqua Tail. At this point, the opponent in an incredibly difficult position. They are going to let that through. In comes the Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko does hit quite hard, so I'm going to be shielding up the Greedent as they do go for the Nature's Madness. I continue to farm. Looks like I'll be able to get the farm down, so the opponent is going to resign the match. Tough lead in the next match, Greedent into Dragonite. Dragonite is a Pokemon that this team is ABA weak to, and this is actually the non-Shadow Dragonite. I'm more used to playing it out versus the Shadow. I land the Body Slam, I wait the turn trying to catch a potential superpower, but my prediction is wrong. That's not when they throw, and they're going to be able to launch multiple Dragon Claws at the Giratina. So we started on a tough lead. I get the prediction wrong. Things are rapidly going downhill. They send in Greedent to absorb all of this energy, and Greedent is going to be a massive problem if they get this Mud Shot down, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going for. They're just going to leave with 100 energy, and that's incredibly threatening. My switch clock is not yet up. My switch clock is going to be up after I fire off this Dragon Claw, though, so I will be able to switch into my own Greedent, go for the Body Slam, and good information to know for later, I do win the CMP tie over my opponent. The Body Slam will connect, but we are going to see an absolute avalanche of Body Slams from my opponent here as they just have Body Slam after Body Slam with the Greedent. Their clock is going to be up soon, but they're perfectly fine with staying in here and just spamming out these Body Slams. I'm going to overfarm as much as I possibly can. I'm hoping that whatever they send in, I'm going to be able to survive 2 turns worth of damage to make it to the Body Slam, but if it's a Dragonite, I'm probably getting KO'd, and I do get KO'd. In comes the Gyarados. I'm farming up. I was thinking about going for a catch onto the Giratina, but I didn't go for it. In the back, they have Feraligatr. This game, if I get a catch, should be a win, but I do have to get the catch. I believe they're at 7 Shadow Claws here. I'm going to switch when they get to the back-to-back Hydros. Oh, but I get the prediction wrong. And 2 predictions wrong in one match is probably going to be game over for me. There's the Ice Beam. They do not bait. And unfortunately, I do lose with a shield remaining. Hopping into the final match, we do see a positive lead Greedent into the Alolan Sandslash. This is where I want to see Alolan Sandslash on this team, so this works out very, very nicely. I fire off the Crunch. Crunch is going to connect, and it looked like, even though it didn't show the words, I believe I did get the Crunch debuff there. Sandslash will go for the Drill Run. Opponent is going to send in Feraligatr. Feraligatr will be met with the Body Slam, and then I'm more than happy to send in the Gyarados. Honestly, I probably should have sent in the Gyarados right away, as this Feraligatr does have a pretty big energy head start. They go for the Crunch, that's perfectly fine. I'm farming up energy. My opponent makes it to another move, and here I actually miscounted. I thought that they were at the Hydro, but they're at the Crunch, and this now means that they can, if they want to, shield and flip switch. So an unfortunate miscount there, and in hindsight, I shouldn't have thrown the Body Slam. I should have just switched immediately into the Gyarados, as Gyarados can do pretty nicely into the Feraligatr, just because Dragon Breath will add up over time. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can with the Greedent and fire off the Body Slam. My opponent has already one switch, they have no need to shield here. In the back, they have a Shadow Dragonite, and this is not good. I've lost my Gyarados. They baited it out, and now I only have 2 things that are weak to Dragonite. This game is going to be a miracle to win. Dragon Claw gets shielded. I farm up to the back-to-back, but my opponent reads me like a book. They get the Body Slam catch out of the Sand Slash, but genuinely, that's not bad for me. I need damage on this Sand Slash. The way that I see myself winning this game is by going for a hyper-aggressive farm down with the Giratina. So I bank a little bit of energy on the Greedent, send in the Giratina to just use as a damage sponge. They're hitting me for super effective damage, but this is the raw power of Giratina Altered. Able to tank charge move after charge move. In comes the Dragonite, but I should be able to withstand the Dragon Breaths to make it to double Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw number 1 gets the shield, and Giratina makes it to Dragon Claw number 2. So misplays in the mid game, but with a fraction of HP left, still able to take the win. All in all, the damage buff to Aqua Tail is a nice addition to Gyarados, as it does give it a little bit more closing power. However, I will say, I definitely still did feel the stat product difference when you compare something like Gyarados to some of the more XL beasts, like let's say a Greedent, for example. The difference in stat product is just absolutely massive, and considering that 2 of Gyarados' 3 main moves, Dragon Breath and Crunch, do not get same type attack bonus, it can often struggle to output damage in those situations, so the Aqua Tail buff definitely does help it a little bit, but I do think it's still missing something, whether it's, I don't know if it has like a signature move in the main series or something like that, that it could get, that could help it out, because Gyarados, definitely one of my favorite Open Ultra League mons. It was on my first, I would say my first signature Go Battle League team ever, was the Gyarados lead with the Lapras and the Giratina in the back. Unfortunately, only Giratina really remains as a meta stalwart from that time, but it would be cool to see some of those more OG Pokemon get to have a bit of a renaissance in the Ultra League meta. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.